Say hi, Marcus.
Hi. Can we have lunch soon?
Honey, you ate lunch at school. And a little bit late and getting the winners for my contest for the Canlis dinner. First off, I just want to let you guys know how I got it. So I got an email from some dudes at the University of Washington. Dudes decided they wanted to give it to me, and I was incredibly excited because I love food, and it was just interesting to imagine these dudes sitting around going, yeah, we're going to give it to this loud feminist black lady in Seattle. So that was pretty awesome. First I was just like, oh, I'm just going to go eat at Canlis, and I was talking with my brother, and he said, well, you should have a contest. So had this contest, and people could talk about things they could do within, the Pacific Northwest, within their community to address race and social justice, racial justice. The reason why I did this is because I really wanted to bring this conversation down to a local level, down to a micro level, and look at those real individual actions that people can take to really make a difference. Because when we talk about race, we often talk about these huge issues that seem insurmountable, right? How do we address over 1,000 police killings so far this year? How do we address a 15 times income differential between the average black person and the average white person? How do we address things like that? How do we address a 1 in 3 lifetime incarceration rate for black men in America? If you're just sitting at home, it looks too big, right? It looks like a problem for someone else, for somebody with more power. What I want to say about that is that's what the powers that be want you to believe. They want you to believe that it can't be addressed. Because it is something that they can fix, but it's only something they will fix if we make them fix it, if we start addressing on an individual level these issues of inequality in our society. When we start addressing it, paying attention to it, and realizing all of the influence and power we have as individuals, that actually pushes upwards. It puts a lot of pressure on people in power to put their money where their mouth is and to really put forth effort and give away a little of their power. So, a lot of these conversations saying, oh, it's so long, it's so hard, don't worry, it's slowly getting better. These conversations are designed to make you feel like there's nothing to be done. We cannot do it alone, but we can do it as a community. So let's look at, I got a lot of really great entries. I want to read a couple of excerpts from some of the ones people sent. So I'm going to be looking to the side here simply because that's where my other monitor is. So, this one is from Laura Close, and what I liked about this one here is she talks about families. So she says, my community is full of white progressive parents, and I'm working towards racial equality, social justice, culture shift by raising the volume on anti-racist parenting. I'm interested in all the white parents knowing about structural oppression and the do's and don'ts, but I'm excited about white parents unpacking the U.S. culture of white Protestant cultural harshness. This culture plays out at home between parents and children, taking the forms of rigidity, rejection, urgency, tightness, entitlement, and most of all, dire fear of mistakes and flaw exposure. My community has an intellectual commitment to ending racism and nearly zero vocabulary and framework for understanding its own cultural reinforcement of this beast. So that's an excerpt from that, and I really like this too because as a mom, and mom in Seattle especially, I feel like we think our kids are exempt from these conversations, and how we parent is exempt. We think that if we just say, be nice to everybody, we're doing our part in raising aware and productive citizens. And we're, in the meantime, because we aren't talking about issues like race and privilege with our kids, we're actually passing privilege onto them. Well, white people are, because I have no choice but to talk about race and oppression with my kids in order to keep them safe. But if you aren't talking to them about this and you're just saying, be nice to everyone and you can be what you want to be, you're actually passing your privilege on to your kids. And they're growing up thinking that they live in a world where this isn't an issue. And I've seen this actually with my son, my high schooler. He posted this summer that he was really tired of seeing his white friends use the N-word. And so many of these kids said, racism's a problem for old people. It's not an issue anymore. We can all say it now. It's cool. Those are kids whose parents have told them it's not an issue anymore and told them it's nothing you have to worry about, because white parents don't have to worry about it, and they don't have to worry about it for their kids. So I really love that one. Thank you, Laura, for adding that in. We'll look at some more. Chase Crafts. I really like Chase went with reparations, and I always got to give ups to someone who talks about reparations, because it is, while it's one of the more controversial ideas that people bring up, and for some reason it's just this immediate alarm that goes through the white community when somebody talks about reparations. But I think part of the reason why, and why reparations would be amazing, and Chase actually talks about this here, part of the reason why the white community is so opposed to reparations is because it's a direct acknowledge of the economic benefits that white society still gets today from racism, and that really pulls the rug out from underneath that thought that you're a good guy today living in the world and you have nothing to do with the racism of the past. When you look at the economics of it and you look at how you benefit financially from the racism of the past and the present and likely the future, everyone has blood on their hands. And I think that's part of the reason why there's such a vitriolic reaction to the thought of reparations. So part of what Chase says is we cannot have racial equality and justice without reparations for Black America and Native America and Mexican America, because equality and justice are impossible on any terms other than material terms. The ballot is not enough when the average white household has 20 times the wealth of the average Black household. And it doesn't have to be framed as justice for the long dead, but for the plunder of bodies that are with us here and now, whether it be redlining, legal confiscation, the neglect of reservations, the agricultural subsidies, the depredations of the criminal justice system, the orchestrated hypocrisy of immigration policy, the futility of the drug war, the American government, which is identified with its people, has stolen the wealth of living people of color and redistributed it to living white people. That's a really right-on statement, and it's true. It's completely true. I love this one so much. The only reason why, honestly, I didn't pick it to win is because it's one of those things that kind of stands up there as a larger issue that the average person hanging out in Seattle doesn't feel like they can participate in. Like, they're like, what can I do to get reparations? Now, that being said, taking this sentiment, this financial, sentiment, this economic sentiment that Chase Krause was talking about, you can take that on a local level in the fact that, if you have a business, if you make any money in your community, or if you have at all profited, and you have, off of the backs of brown people in your community, you can give back financially. There are organizations all over the city you can give to Head Start. You can vote with your taxes, right? That's another way. You can actually put money into these communities and give back to these people. There are plenty of organizations right now that you could be putting back in, you could be tithing to. right now, in recognition that you owe a heck of a lot of what you have to people of color and what has been forcefully taken from them. So I really do love that one, Jason. Honestly, I would love if we talked more about the economics of race. And this is definitely something I feel like, my socialist friends and Mudere will, love to talk about and try to talk about, and oftentimes people kind of roll their eyes. But they do that because it's a threat to a lot of people. But, race is an economic issue at its heart. Now, economics and race, I'm not trying to get, all Bernie Sanders here, because race creates economic issues, and race was created to fit economic needs. But you can't just say you're going to address the economy as a whole and think that you're going to be able to address racism. You have to address economic racism, and that is its own thing. So I really did love that entry, though. It made me super happy. I got another one from Heather Pilder Olson, and she works with the Pratt Fine Arts Center. So I really liked this. She's talking about what she's doing right now in her neighborhood, and part of what she talks about here is, she says, I want to, in my own life and neighborhood, I want to reach out and have more conversations. I want to talk to my neighbors of all races and find out what their concerns are. I want to listen, I want to write letters, and I want to speak up, speak out, and post about it on social media. I like that. That's a very personal sentiment, and I think it's definitely a really good starting point for a lot of people to bring, if you're a white person especially, to bring these issues into your community, I think is very important. Make people uncomfortable. And she goes further. She says, at work, I will be joining the Central District Chamber of Commerce to find out how my workplace, Pratt Fine Arts Center, can be more involved and be a better community partner. We have been in the CD for nearly 40 years, and some of our direct neighbors, both commercial and residential, don't know who we are or what we do. We will also be conducting diversity trainings for our entire staff and board to open eyes, minds, and start conversations to improve on the issues of racial equality and justice. I am proud to work at a place that is taking real steps to make things better. We want to reach out more to our community and improve on our mission to make art accessible to all people. I really do like this a lot, especially because Seattle has a vibrant arts community, and honestly, most of the best art in Seattle is being created by people of color. And you will rarely find it, especially for burgeoning artists of color, in the major institutions here in Seattle, and they are rarely financed. So what we have are artists of color perfecting their craft basically by, old school crowdsourcing, before Kickstarter, where we basically were like, hey, somebody give me a space, somebody help me with materials, somebody do this, and people have been working and clawing to get any sort of recognition, and just now are really starting to get it. And it's not just about saying, look at this great art of artists of color. It's about paying for that art, paying for housing for these artists so they can actually afford to live here, and about making sure that the people who get power within arts institutions are more diverse as well. So I don't want to see galleries full of art from artists of color and the people making profit off those galleries are all white. I want people of color to be able to access the art. I want people of color to be able to make art. And I want people of color to be able to profit and live from their art. So I think that's the beginning of a really great conversation that I wish more institutions in Seattle were having. So thank you, Heather. I really do love that one here. Jocelyn Thomas in Portland sent in one that says, a way that we can help to ease or at least alleviate some of the racial tension is most certainly to offer racial equity, space in which groups can come together without the inclusion of others in order to foster conversations and discussions about what their needs are and how to meet them. So, it really does start with conversation, so I really did like that one as well. And we have Catherine Tucson, who I really, really loved this one too, and says, I and my community can work to fight racial injustice in the Pacific Northwest by accepting and confronting our own internalized racism, both as individuals and as a progressive community. We can teach our children that white privilege exists and that they need to believe in it when they see it happening. We can strive to find that tricky balance between doing our work and listening to and speaking with our Black and brown friends. We can stop believing that the existence of any plausible alternate explanation means that racism is disproved. I really do like that sentence too, because you come across that a lot as a person of color. Someone going, well, it could be anything else, therefore it's not racism. We can speak up when we see it happening, and if we're too scared to speak up, we can speak up afterwards. We can demand accountability from our institutions of power, our schools, our courts, our banks, our police forces. We can accept our call-outs when we screw up, which is inevitable, out of love and grace, and with the understanding that being called out isn't an insult, it's a show of respect, because the person calling you out believes that you can do better and knows that you want to and is offering you guidance to help on your journey. But really, at the base of it, I think the most important thing we can do is just believe that this is real, that it's all around us, carrying us downstream like a river, and just because you're not actively moving faster than the current doesn't mean you're not complicit in the system. The only way to not lose ground is to paddle upstream as hard as you can. So I really like this, and this kind of just made me want to chill with Catherine for a bit because I feel like I could, have a conversation with her about anything, and it probably wouldn't get bad, which is something in Seattle when you're talking about well-meaning white people is not something you can take for granted at all. So I really did love that, Catherine, and thank you very much. And the last one I'm going to share with you guys is not Jennifer Swick. And it says, though I haven't figured out how to make it practical, I like the idea of a neighborhood conversation club, where one member of the community suggests a monthly topic, news, book, recipe, etc., and I laminate it and post it on telephone poles all over the neighborhood. I hand out free buttons with the Conversation Club logo, and you wear them if you'd be open to talking about the topic with other community members. Plus side, fosters spontaneous interaction between strangers in the form of casual small talk in public spaces. Drawback, you'd have to not be shy. Maybe this is what sports are already for. It would be a lot of work. Would maybe work best if I focused on one square block of my neighborhood. What I really love about this is it really is making this really small and really local. And if you really did focus on your block, that would be doable. And you can really talk about the smaller issues that really do affect people of color right in your little neighborhood. Now, that being said, if your block is white, it can be really hard somebody would have to be accountable to push that conversation outside of that block of whiteness. And, but I really like this, that it seemed actionable. It definitely seemed like something that you could have people talking about, and even something you could even take online and kind of build a community there. So those were just some. I got a lot more, but we would be here like 5 billion hours if I read all of the entries here. But I want to announce the winner is Catherine Tucson. I really liked the amount of thought that she gave to her answer. I also just really liked the thought that she talked about, reaching out to your schools, your courts, your banks, police forces. Now, this is definitely something that you can, on a community level, write a plan for. You can write. I live in Shoreline. I can write out a Shoreline community plan, and if people wanted to join in, we could talk about things like, we're going to look up the police, accountability process, right? Look up the review boards. We're going to look up school funding. We're going to look up school programs for, English as a second language students, for diversity programs, all of these things that we can look at as a community and place by place really start to make a difference. You can change your world if you can change your street. So I really did like this, and Catherine, I hope that you still want to eat dinner with me, and I will reach out to you and we'll schedule.
Hello. I am Marcus Torzillo from UC. I showed up in one of the YouTube videos already.
Yes.
Oh, hey, you do use the YouTube thing that I use.
Yeah, we're talking about how we can stop racism. What ideas do you have? Do you want to tell them? Do you think of any ideas?
That you guys should get a sign that says Black Lives Matter.
We should, huh?
Yeah, we should buy it from Benson's house.
Yeah.
They have black signs that say that.
I think everyone should have a sign that says Black Lives Matter, don't you? You're right, bud. Okay, I love you.
Love you too.